I'm sure we are popping on to Facebook right about now. So, hey guys, here we go. Here we go. Yes, we are officially live now. What's good? Dr. S here. Anissa hanging out. We are back with our conversation about the things scripted love, black love, rom coms, all of the names.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you are popping on with us, please, 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 first thank you for popping on with us, and then be sure to share, tag, all of those wonderful things. And I'm gonna try to maneuver here
Mm-hmm.
so I can have a couple of different things up. So, Dr. A, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am, when she said maneuver, I thought it was a good idea to open up a new window. I am Dr. A, here ready to talk about today's movie, which is Brown Sugar. And I have a confession to make. I just saw Brown Sugar for the very first time this year.
I need on some pearls so I can clutch them. What?
It's my first time ever. See, and it wasn't even a bad, but like, like Love Jones, I can see why I should not have saw that at 15, 16. Brown Sugar was compared to the other couple ones we talked about was very mild, but yeah, I had not seen it before this year. And I don't know why. Maybe it was that time I wasn't feeling Tay Diggs like this, so I just kind of avoided a lot of movies that he was in. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed real like I don't know.
That
So
is hilarious to me. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you guys for
come
popping
on
on.
in.
Well, while we are giving folks an opportunity to join us to share,
Hmm.
let me do my intro because I forgot about that. Dr. S here. Dropping nuggets you didn't know you needed. And as always, it is my hope and prayer that they will help you be your best you. So we are continuing this series, Scripted Love. Tonight we are talking about Brown Sugar. Thus far, we have talked about Two Can Play That Game, uh, Love Jones. Last month we talked about Just Right. If you missed any of those, you can go to my YouTube channel,
Hmm.
Dr. Sha-Lai, and catch up on those. I think they were all very interesting. I'm going to mention just a couple of things that are coming up. I'm going to give Dr. A an opportunity just to remind us how we even got started on this conversation, and then we'll jump into it. So, for those of you who are in the St. Louis area, um, and who don't currently have plans for Valentine's Day of February 14th, 2025, I am hosting a Galentine's night out. We are getting the girls together and we are going to game show battle rooms in Chesterfield. I'm super excited about it. One, because I love a good game show.
Hmm.
I'm not super competitive, but I love like game shows and nerding out and that kind of stuff. So we'll have the opportunity to play three different games as teams. So that is going to be exciting. So if you're interested in hanging out with us that night, you can go to drshalay.com/events-1 and reserve your spot. It's $42, which covers admissions into the activity. And if we're just having such a, rip roaring good time, we can go grab a bite afterwards. Um, or if you have plans after that, you want to kick it with the girls for a little while, then go do something else. That's cool too. You got options. Just
Hmm.
want to let you know you got options. The other thing I would love you to do is mark your calendar, ladies, for April 5th. We are having the fifth annual. It just, my mind is in awe of the Lord when I say, I'm like, the fifth one? The fifth one. Fifth annual Roar Like a Lioness Women's Conference on April 5th of 2025. So if you have been to um, any of the other Roar Like a Lionesses, you definitely know how we get down. You're going to want to be there. If you have not ever been, let this be your first one. Come on out. So, in the new year, there will be more information about that, about registration and all those good things. But I want to at least get it on your calendar. So, February 14th, April 5th. All right, Dr. A, why did we even get started on this
So
scripted love?
yes, we got started when I was randomly rewatching rather, um, to could play that game. And one scene just kind of sent me into this rant. Like, why are we excited? And so we began to think Dr. S and I have these conversations all the time. Just about relationship dynamics. And I pose the question, is it possible? Because these movies were for, me. When I say me, Dr. S was grown when these movies came out, but I was like a teenager in some cases, but even then she was a young woman, and it just made me wonder, those of us who, watch these movies, is it possible that we've taken cues, relationship cues specifically from these movies? And so we started this series and we just kind of dissected these different movies and to just see what we can get from them, maybe in a different, now we've lived life, we have marriages under our belt,
Yeah.
we have relationships under our belts, like, and what we can glean from these rom-coms.
Yeah. So that's why we're talking about some
Hmm.
of them. Now we went over a list yesterday and we were like, I would consider that kind of like classic black rom com. Maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't, but I feel like the ones we've picked have
Hmm.
been ones that have kind of lasted, you know, I
Hmm.
know Dr. A likes to use the phrase "they ain't age well," but I think in some ways they are very much the movies that at least kind of a generation
Hmm.
held down. Like we watch them, we know them, we can recite some of the lines from them, and so um, I think we picked those that you know definitely resonate with us, right? And so I think Brown Sugar is high up on that list of movies that whether you like Tay, whether you like Boris, whether you like, whether it was the light skin versus dark skin, you know what I'm saying? Whether it was what or whatever, like it kind of stands out. So, Dr. A, what's just a little snippet, little synopsis for those of
Hmm.
us who are popping on? And again, thank you for hanging out with us. Please be sure to say hey in the comments. What's like a quick synopsis about the movie, and then we'll jump into our question.
You're right. So real brief, it starts with two friends, Dre and Sydney. Yes, Dre and Sydney, and I believe that they've been friends a really long time before, and they kind of grew up together. And so Dre is getting married. So now Sydney realizes, hey, I like him more than friends. So I can identify with that, not to jump in like you like somebody, but you they friend, and they
Mm-hmm.
get into another relationship and you start tripping because it's like it was cool till you got attached. So Dre gets married, goes through the marriage. She, let me not skip over part, she Sydney um gives him a impulsive kiss before the wedding, but it wasn't enough to be like, oh, let's explore this, let me call the wedding off. He still gets married. So because of that, Sydney throws herself into her work. She eventually gets into a relationship that ends up into an engagement.
Mm-hmm.
um and so Dre and I forgot Dre's wife's name, they began
Reese.
having some issues. Reese, thank you. They began having some issues. Dre is, and I love how the movie is centered around like hip hop. So it's hip hop, it's relationships. This movie was really well done. Um, Dre and his record company, he's getting disillusioned, so he quits and wants to start his own record label, which Reese is not good with. You got 15 minutes as a black man and not have a job, and so she don't like it. So that's causing some rifts in their relationship. And as they go on, Dre finds out that Sid is cheating on him.
Reese.
I see it, sorry, Reese,
Mm-hmm.
and uses Sid, well, not uses, but they're still friends even after the awkward kiss. Sid aids him and kind of like busting her or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Dre, so because of that, Dre and Sid get together like physically. Which, and again, Sid is still engaged at this time. So she now has this epiphany, hey, maybe I'm not ready to get married to this guy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that causes this awkward tension between, not awkward tension, but that causes this unresolved, like it's still not, we don't know who we are type space between Dre and Sid. To the point where Sid sees like Dre and Reese out in public embracing, and it just sends her again into a bad headspace. So they're now in this awkward place again, and we're kind of ending to the end of the movie where Sid is doing a radio interview where she confesses her love for Dre. So real quick, it's like they're friends, one of the friends secretly like he's some the other friend, and it just kind of goes on how how they navigate that interaction.
Yes. Thank you so much for that synopsis. And if you guys are popping on, let us know. Have you ever seen Brown Sugar? And if you have, kind of what was your original response to that? Hello, hello, hello to those of you who are popping on. So, what was your original response to the movie then? So, I think we said it was early 2000s. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and then if you were to watch it again now, like how you might see it differently. So, a few things I would like us to touch on. It's just the various relationship dynamics. So Dr. A had mentioned a few of them. Hello, hey guys. So we have Dre and Sid, who
Mhm,
are homies since they were 10 years old and now they're like 30.
mhm,
We have Dre and Reese, who, it didn't seem like they had a very long courtship, but Dre felt like he had found his wifey. So what they have going on, and then eventually you have Sid and Kelby,
mhm,
and their dynamic. And
mhm.
so, just real quick, Dr. A, it's
Oh,
a lot going on in that movie, but it's like you said, it's a good movie, it's a great movie. I love the movie. But looking at how all of these
mhm,
friendships, relationships
mhm,
interact, even Reese and Kelby at one point are like, so how do you deal with them being friends?
mhm.
Like, so what are your thoughts on just initially the dynamics that are happening within the movie?
I thought I thought it was interesting for me that Dre didn't know that Sid liked him. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's very hard, just from experience. You think you hiding that you like somebody, but you really don't, and they know you
Mm-hmm.
like them, but they just pretend like they don't know because they don't either they don't like you back or they don't know how to they don't want to make it awkward. They want to preserve whatever, right? So I thought that was to me, I thought that was really interesting as long as they had been friends and how much he knew about her. He can read her like the back of his hand, that he didn't know that part about her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to me, like some of those dynamics, like you said, it just seemed like him and Reese real quick engagement. I guess you can see how they played out later. Um, but Sid and Kelby was the rebound to me. Kelby was the okay, I can't get who I want. So somebody else, this is what we do. Like I'm gonna go be with somebody who wanna be with me
Mm-hmm.
and not really have dealt with the feelings of,
Excuse me.
the feelings that she had for Sid.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought they were, it was really, and I loved it how they visualized Sid's awkwardness, like at the bridal shower and because we
Yes.
be like that. Like, I don't know, it's so like it's almost like this territorial thing, but she was like just because again, she had not been open about her feelings before it got to that point. So it just causes, just this real uneasiness and awkwardness. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like the way that the all of the dynamics really worked well together, but you
Mhm.
still could see some of the conflict or the other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Now, Tarina said she's never seen the movie. So if y'all have never seen the movie, which some of my our younger
Hmm.
homies might not have seen the movie, it is currently available on Peacock. I think on Tubi as well, but I just watched it
Hmm.
on Peacock, and it's a real easy
Hmm.
watch. Minus the clothing. I told Doctor, hey, I said, do we really in the earth? Why our clothes are so big? Talking about things that didn't age well. I was like, oh my
I
gosh.
said,
Okay,
man, I play that big old suit.
I'm glad Baggy is out now. We ain't gotta be tight, but woo, honey. But anyway, so it's interesting you say that, and we're gonna ease into kind of my next thought is Dre
Hmm.
asked Sid out in college, I think they say in the movie. And
Okay.
she said no
Hmm.
because she didn't want to ruin their friendship.
Hmm.
So it is possible,
Hmm.
and this is why, if any guys are watching or watch the replay, we would love your thoughts.
Hmm.
In my mind, maybe he didn't know
Hmm.
because he had put it out there.
And she was
He
like, man,
had said she wasn't interested, and so he was like, okay,
okay, yeah.
we're just cool, we're friends, we're besties, we're whatever.
Hmm.
And even if she did like him, maybe she felt like that time had passed.
Hmm.
He had shot his shot. She shot him down. now, now we're just friends.
Hmm.
So one of the things that Dr. A and I talk about, and I don't know if Ebony is on because I was telling her, I'm like, yeah, we had these conversations all the time. So in addition to talking about these movies and what we may have learned from them, y'all are getting just like a little snippet
Hmm.
into my and Anis's like everyday conversation. We're always trying to figure it out. Um, and one of the things we talk about is it are there, and if there are, what are the benefits of having platonic relationships? It seems like oftentimes when we're talking about a guy and a girl, we're like, they're dating with intention. They're dating to mate. It's like, well, what happened with just knowing somebody of the opposite sex, just hanging out with somebody from, just figuring out this whole other, basically species. It feels like who thinks, acts, does things completely different than you. That it could be helpful to have this sounding board. So, Dr. A, what are your thoughts on the benefits of platonic relationships, and then at some point, like, are there cons? What are your thoughts? Yeah,
I
platonic.
think I believe it's beneficial because, like you said earlier, like, well, you didn't say it explicitly, but having a male perspective, or if you're a male and having a female perspective, just gets you into like a different headspace, right? Because if you only have your perspective as a female, I don't know how to think like a male. Like, I don't, and I didn't grow up with brothers, right? Like, I didn't grow up with, and all my uncles, I didn't think to ask them. But like, uh, that can be hey, what does this mean when this guy say he like me and he do X, Y, and Z? They'll tell you straight up, I don't like you
I
like
don't like you.
that. It ain't no emotion attached to it. And it's not that they don't care about your feelings, but they just like kind of cut through the alley and be like, they don't like you like that.
Right.
So I think having platonic relationships, platonic male female relationships are beneficial I'm gonna tell you why. We listen, we don't judge. Because we'll not, as grown women, think every man that come into our atmosphere is our potential husband.
That part.
But we listen and don't judge. I didn't we didn't have those types. I mean, yeah, we went to school and had, like, guys in our class, but I was one of those awkward girls who did not know how to talk to boys because my main socialization, well, one of my main socialization grounds, which was church, like had this, big, like, we keep them separate, like y'all
Mhm.
stay pure, yeah, like we didn't have, like, we had a Christian prom, but even that was weird. Like, we had like these socialization activities where it was okay just to, have a guy that's a friend, right?
Mhm.
Like, if a guy was a friend for some odd reason, that was automatically your boyfriend. And no, so now, as if young ladies are socialized like that, like they don't know how to differentiate, like, just a guy who's a good friend, y'all can have conversations, to this is my potential husband. And like, that's, to me, not healthy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know if it's any cons. I believe a con would be just like other friendships where you don't have boundaries.
Mhm.
That can be a con because platonic relationships can probably very well turn to situationships if y'all not careful. Right? Like, it just very well just ease itself into that. So I think just like any other relationship, you have boundaries, or, and if it's a situationship, they weren't your friend anyway. Like, their ultimate goal was to try to, like, I've been in platonic relationships where, or friendships where, I didn't even sniff impropriety. Like, they never made a move, you know what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
then you have those platonic friends where, like you said, they make a pass at you or whatever, then like, were they really your friend anyway? So
Mhm.
I'm interested to hear you think in if the pros and cons.
Yeah, and I would love for those of you who are hanging out with us, like, have you ever had a platonic relationship? Like,
Hmm.
how was that? How did that work out? Tarina said, I'm learning how to have platonic relationships with males. So,
Hmm.
yeah, so many of us, just real talk is that maybe we didn't have a dad or that figure in the home. Maybe we didn't have brothers. Maybe we didn't have, like, maybe we just didn't have male figures, whatever that looked like, whether that's dad, brothers, uncles, whatever. Um, so I don't know. It's a really interesting dynamic because I feel like also a lot of the women that I hang out with now, like women who would be like, I ain't hang out with girls in high school.
Hmm.
I always had more guy friends than girlfriends.
Hmm.
But at the same time, we didn't necessarily think about them as platonic relationships
Hmm.
because usually it seemed like somebody liked somebody.
Hmm.
Like,
hmm
I had guy friends, like generally, not me personally, well, me
hmm
personally, but also kind of globally, universally,
hmm
it is possible that we had guy friends, but either I had a crush on them or they had a crush on me. And the reason why we were friends is because it wasn't a mutual attraction.
hmm
But I don't know that I would have considered that a platonic friendship because, like we were saying, there's still like this undercurrent
hmm
of something.
hmm
I don't know that I've ever had a guy friend who was just a friend.
hmm
I don't know that that's ever happened.
hmm
And as you talk about, we listen and we don't judge. I ain't always been saved. So back in the day, I really wanted a gay guy friend because
hmm
I was like, that's the best of two worlds. Like, it's a guy, but I ain't got to worry about nothing because he ain't trying to talk to me. You know what I'm saying? So in my mind, that was like the only way I
hmm
could have a true friendship
hmm
with a guy. Now that never really manifested.
hmm
But so yeah, so I definitely think there are benefits, right? To your point, men and women are different. Men and women are conditioned and socialized different. Men and
hmm
women think differently. And so I think if all we ever do is talk to our homegirls, it is likely that we're going to hear what we already think, feel, blah, 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 versus
Mhm,
having an opportunity to talk to a guy and be like you said, what does it mean when they do this? Or
mhm,
what does it mean if they say this? Or how should I interact with whatever?
mhm,
So I definitely think there are benefits. I do also agree that a con could be, if it is not that strict delineation, that it
mhm,
could but turn into, friends with benefits or a situationship or something like that. So to see its point in the movie, she was like, I didn't want to ruin our friendship by
mhm,
trying to have a relationship. Or I didn't
mhm,
want to ruin our friendship by being intimate.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I guess if both people are on the same page on whether it's strictly friendship or whether it's with benefits or whether it's a situationship, then I mean we grown out here in these streets. But yes, definitely something to consider. So let's see, we got some comments here. I believe when interest and feelings shift, speak up and keep the air clear. Excuse me, that's what Nikki said.
mhm,
And she also said she didn't grow up with a consistent male presence. Tarina agreed. But when they were, I had to learn how to be around them guys. But
mhm,
with it not being consistent, sometimes I don't know. I
mhm.
don't know. I'm not behaving a certain way or present. Um, because she was saying she's more reserved. And she also agreed with the gay guy friends. I'm just saying it was like that would make life so
Mhm.
much more easy, like so much easier. Um, I'm like, I know what you want, and it ain't me.
Right. Anything. I can't bring
There is no confusion.
right. No
There is
confusion.
no confusion. So one of the things I know you had some things you wanted to talk about too, Dr. A. So let me know.
No, go ahead. No, this is good. I
Okay.
love that question about, especially when you bring up that when most people say, and I never thought about that. And maybe, and it could be maybe because I didn't think of myself in that dating space. I was very much a tomboy. I didn't think
Mhm.
of myself as girlfriend material. Like,
Mm.
so as a person who did have guy friends like in high school, and we were childhood friends that, just happened to go to high school together. Like, I was literally one day, like, he would talk to me about his girlfriends. I used to have to say, like, dude, I am not a boy. You guys stop talking to me about this stuff. I don't want to hear that.
TMI, TMI.
Right, but I never thought about that in some cases when people say that there was some level of attraction on
Mm-hmm.
on either end. Like, I just assumed that, it would just be just friends, right? And it also makes me wonder, and this is off on a tangent, because I
Mm-hmm.
see this kind of a lot where like you do just have some women who are just, what's a good word? Like, not necessarily more comfortable. Like, I guess it's more comfortable and they know how to like handle themselves. Like, if they know about the attraction, they know how to friend zone and keep somebody in the friend zone. Like, they are just more comfortable, because I've heard the same thing. Like, guys are less drama. I don't like hanging out with girls because they always too much. I'm like, you're a girl, so you're too much sometimes. But that's just a different perspective I never thought about, that possibility was there.
Yeah, yeah. So you had mentioned in one of your friendships, at least,
Mhm,
you didn't necessarily see yourself as girlfriend material. So I
mhm,
thought it was interesting in the movie when Dre defined wifey material. See, it was
mhm,
like, well, what is it about her? And
mhm,
he said she was fine, smart, classy, but
mhm,
not a snob, and sexy, but not a hoe. Okay.
mhm,
So at least in the early 2000s,
mhm,
that's how some men
mhm,
defined wifey material. And
mhm,
I'm curious, again, this is why men should be a part of this conversation, is I wonder if that's how some men
mhm,
view a wife. Like,
mhm,
and again, I'm telling y'all are, if y'all could be flies on the wall with me and Dr. A talk, it's like like we'll have a list women me, because maybe not Dr. A, we have a list of 75 things that a guy has to have to make him potential.
Mhm.
Whereas a brother might be like, she got these
That's
three
what I
things.
was about to say. Like,
Five is a lot. If she got these three things, I'm good.
right.
So I wonder, I'm curious, just when he said it, she got to be attractive to me. She got to have some sense. She got to know how to act in public, and she got to know how to act in the bed.
Mm-hmm. When they say men are simple for a while, I be like, no, they not. They complicated. But like this again, which is why we need a male voice. Like when y'all say y'all simple, like it don't, uncomplicated,
Mhm.
non-complex, whatever. Like looking at that list, I think you had shared something else, like just these five things, and then some guys be like, and two of them, I know I might not. Like I'm aware that two of these things on this list I may never get, and I'm okay with that. Whereas to your point, some women be like, look, if they ain't this on this list, throw the whole guy away.
Baby out with the bathwater. And listen, y'all who are hanging out with us, if you know a guy, tag him, tag
Hey,
tag him in
come
this
come
in
on
this
here, put
live,
it in this
so
chat.
he can comment because we need
We
we
don't
need
want to speak for guys. We want to hear from y'all.
because again we speculate,
Right. We don't know.
we're guessing based on our limited interaction with
Hmm.
some guys.
Hmm.
So yeah, if you a guy, look, I know at least one. Let me
I know
tag.
at least one.
Um, let's see. So a couple of people saying they not that. Are y'all saying that the guy has to be social ready? Um, Tarina said she's not trying to overshare in a platonic relationship, but she also has a list for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, the Lord really, my stomach about to start hurting. Like the thought of only three things, five. Woo, it's too it's too much. It came my brain can't take that. So I'm gonna shift before I,
That's
before
so.
I start struggling because I mean I wonder, y'all let me know how y'all women. So Tarina says she has a list. What about the rest of y'all? Y'all have lists from a woman standpoint. If you had to describe husband material, could you limit your list to four non-negotiables,
What they say in
or two non-negotiables and two possibles?
what they
Like,
say in Spain, you got four in the possible.
right, you know what I'm saying?
Got
Could you
five
do
in the
it?
possible. Oh,
And I'm
man.
gonna tell you why it stresses me out. Cause I'm a control freak.
Mm.
That's why.
Serena said
What's a little bit?
that baby. Live baby her list.
Oh, yo, Liz, what's a little bit, Tarita? Cause yes, interaction alone is overwhelming. Yes,
Oh,
like
in some cases, when you don't have the practice, right? Like we talk about, women of other races, sometimes. And I think it was on a podcast where they say, like, certain like Caucasian women, they've been dating since they was 10. Like, so they got a good 6 years on for like my first date was when I was 16. So they got a good 6 years on us. And again, like how we're socialized. I remember when I don't know if I've ever heard this directed at a black woman, but I've definitely heard it directed at a black woman. Like they go to college to get the misses, the MRS. Like they'll go and declare a major, but they are going to look for a husband. And so yeah, like some of us were not socialized. Like you had brothers, yes, male cousins, yes, constant they interact, fathers, friends, yes. But yeah, I don't want to compromise my values. Okay.
And right, so we're gonna do a separate live at some point about
Mhm.
like settling versus compromise, and
Mhm.
there are many people who shared on a
Mhm.
post I made the other day. So we want to talk about that because I feel like that could go into this conversation, right? So either we haven't had a lot of experience, so we
Mhm.
don't know,
Mhm.
or we have dated and we weren't particular,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that's how we ended up where we are. So for me, I feel like that's where I am. It's like I overcorrect because I'm like, okay, well, he just need
Mhm.
to be saved,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then that don't work out for me. Or okay, he need to be this. That don't work out for me. So it's like I don't know. So we'll save that for this subsequent impromptu pop up live we gonna do at some point. Um, but it leads me into my next kind of question point is, and I can't remember it had to come in the movie because I wrote it down while watching the movie.
Mhm.
Do you pick a guy
Mhm.
who checks all the boxes? It did because Kelby for
Mhm.
Sid kind of checked all the boxes, right? He's tall and attractive and a ball player. He got money. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? He's doing all these grand gestures and all of this stuff.
Mhm.
So do you date and marry him, or do you date the guy who knows you,
Right, because that's what I was
who's
just
your
about to
friend,
say.
who
Yeah,
loves you
yeah.
unconditionally?
That's what I was just about to say. Somewhere in the movie, she wrote for a column or something, and somewhere the question to Dre was like, "Oh, you read those?" And he was like, "I read everything you write." Right? Like, so he was, I'm not gonna say into her, but he really like valued like reading something I write is the
Right.
is the equivalent of a hug to me. Like and like everything, not like you skip a week or like it could be garbage. Like I still read it, right? Like,
Mhm.
so do you marry a like you said, do you marry a man that checks these boxes? Like he was what's that man name? Kelby was cooking for her, like was sweeping her off her feet, all of this stuff. And he was very, romantic, affectionate, all of those things. And easily she could have got caught up in that. Well, I guess technically she did.
Right.
So,
Um, get past the Steve-O comment. You want to join us?
she wanted to do this.
Um, keep talking, Anissa.
No, yeah, no, but I was just thinking about that. Um, thinking about that, like you could easily get, which is why you got. I'm pretty sure somewhere we're gonna talk about like being honest with ourselves and the person that we like, but but like you could easily those things could easily, like I said earlier, probably because it never said anywhere where she did or didn't do this. But because
Mhm.
she didn't deal with her feelings about Dre, it was easy for her to get swept up with Kelby. Kelby was the band-aid, right? And
Mhm.
so we could lie to ourselves, because I've done it, and say, I can do this for the rest of my life. Like I'm saying, he doing all the things. But when it came to like the essence of who she was, he wasn't he wasn't on that, right? Like I feel like somewhere when they were he would miss things that was important to her, but she made sure she was at his games and she made sure she was available. But like, so I think that bears to be really honest for yourself, which I feel like we'll get into that conversation in the separate live. Like, just because they check all the boxes don't necessarily mean that they're good for you. Like, right, like I'm covering my pain right now. It feel good surface, but what when something that really matters to me and you gotta gloss over it, like, but I'm gonna stay because I can't stand the thought that you with somebody else. So I'm gonna stay
Mhm.
with him because I can't. I haven't dealt with myself with the fact that the guy I really want is with somebody else.
Right. Um, so somewhere, maybe I skipped over it. So you brought up an excellent point. Um, of like, so maybe see it was more susceptible to the possibility or open to the
Hmm.
possibility of Kelby because
Hmm.
she's like, the person I really want is now no longer available. So clearly, I'm not going to try to be a homewrecker. I'm not
Hmm.
going to, try to break them up or whatever. So here's this guy who, for all intents and purposes,
Hmm.
you know, meets the needs.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna kick it with him. So where does like these unspoken feelings, where does that come in? Like how do we communicate
Hmm.
how we actually feel about someone in a healthy and constructive way?
I think, and at 16, when or whenever I felt this last, I was probably like 19, 20. I think allowing yourself to grieve
Mm,
is the only thing that I can think of, like allowing yourself to be sad, allowing yourself to process those feelings, because in anything, right? Like if you try to cover it up, our emotions, our feelings has a way of jumping on us at the wrong time, at the most inopportune time. So I think first, like acknowledging, I ain't even gonna say accept yet, acknowledging like this sucks. Like the person that I want to be with is with somebody else.
mm-hmm,
And even how to navigate that, because in this case, they were best friends. So if she didn't show up to the bridal shower, she would probably be pegged as not a good friend,
mm-hmm,
right? Like, so then how do we have this conversation about why I didn't come to your bridal shower, right?
right.
Um, so I think allowing yourself to grieve and process and um be mad, whatever, go through stages of grief, but allowing that to happen to where then, and this is all about theory because I've never actually done this, then if you've gone through that process, being able to have that conversation on the strength of y'all friendship. And when I say the strength of y'all friendship, like we have been able to tell each other, deep dark secrets before, and we've, came on the other side. So on the strength of your friendship, just like hear me out. I don't want you, and she may not, nothing may not come out of it. Like they don't necessarily mean I want you to leave, fiance or whatever, but I just need to put this out there to clear the air, as someone said earlier. So when feelings start to shift, let's put it out there and clear the air. Hello, we got a guest. We have
Hello.
it.
All right. So have you been
Um,
on the whole time?
huh?
Were you watching the whole time?
Hold on one sec. What you say?
I said, were you watching the whole time?
Not the whole time. I wasn't watching the whole time. I was on for like a little bit, and then yeah, then I started commenting.
Oh, okay.
Just a
So
few moments.
do you want to like jump in where we are? You have any thoughts you want to share to the point we're at now?
I listened until I got something to
Oh Lord, that ain't gonna take long.
say.
That ain't gonna take long.
It ain't gonna take long. So to this point, we have been talking about the dynamics that were happening in the movie. We were talking about the pros and cons of platonic relationships. And just now, oh, actually, so this is my question for you because you made a comment in here. You were like, maybe we should move from they need to I need to. So you're one guy. I'm sure you can't speak for all men, but do men have lists? Like when they're thinking about who
Of
they trying
course. I mean, That's why I included myself in the week, because we have, I call it preferences. So we have preferences, things that we would like to see in a mate, and things that we would not like to see in a mate. But then one has to realize or come to the conclusion, okay, well, what am I what am I exuding that brings out the things that I don't like in somebody else? So, or attracts people that I don't, that have the traits that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a perspective that I'm semi brand new to, because everybody wants to look at something and be like, okay, I like this, but this could change, but are you looking in the mirror or are you looking through a window? And uh, that's the biggest challenge that we face as individuals, because we don't ever like to think that we're wrong. I mean, look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I don't look good at all today. Time to go. And then you want to look your best. You want to have your best foot forward, and yourself will always tell you when you feel like you're good. I'm the best version of myself, and that's not always true.
I absolutely agree.
Hmm.
So these preferences, and I'm picking on you because you own
Of
it.
course.
So I was saying my list might be real long, and I'm working on brevity. So Dre has said he
Okay,
had
come on with the brevity,
listen.
with the doctor words.
Dre had 4 things. He had 4 preferences. Do we think, even though we're working on ourselves and we're being mindful of us and what we need to do, all that, how long is too long a list from a male perspective?
That's hard to say, because how short is too short of a list? I mean, I don't think there's a all size fits, one size fits all type of thing. I think it's based on who you are as a person, what you're willing to accept, and what things you're not willing to accept. That can make, you can have a list of 2 items, and if one of them is a deal breaker or a hard deal breaker, then it don't matter how long your list is. This is like, okay, well, I'm not going to accept somebody that's going to cheat on me. And you find a cheater that's like a really good cheater, and he feels like, you know what, I am a professional cheater. I'm not going to quit my job for anybody. And then he does it. You say, okay, well, 50% ain't bad. Is that what we say? Nah, you'd be like, that's a deal breaker.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what our list is, and it differs with everybody.
Okay. All right. Serena, what's yikes? What's the yikes for?
Because I'm killing it up now. Just
Whatever. So, Dr. A, you had mentioned earlier the little things, right? So let's compare when Dre quit his job, Sydney's reaction versus Reese's reaction. And then after you talk about that, where you kind of touched on it with Sia's writings, where Dre was like, yeah, when you moved to the other coast, I would still go buy
whatever it
newspaper or
was.
magazine or whatever and still read your stuff versus Kelby being like, okay, I'm gonna read it later because I've been real busy. So what are your thoughts on the significance of the little things that a potential mate might do?
I think again, it was interesting that going back to what you said, that because I forgot about that part, that he had asked Sid out in college, and I think we need to talk about that now. We have Pastor here. Um, like once a woman say no, is it like forever and y'all stay friends? But we'll come back to that. I think before we talked about this, and I know we probably gonna talk about this on another live, like how settling is looked at, right?
Mhm.
Like settling for me has been looked at like, oh, he ain't got no job, so I'll still, like that's settling. But in Kelby and Sydney's case, I feel like Sydney was about to settle, even though Kelby checked a lot off her list. But that one instance of not one instance, but that instance of or that he wasn't like he didn't hold what she loved, which is to write. He didn't hold that dear, like um Dre did, and
Mhm.
vice versa. Dre probably settled, even though he had his five things, and but the proof was in the pudding. When he wanted to branch off on his own, see, it was like, okay, I'll come and I'll be your partner. I'll, walk this thing out with you. Where Reese, and I can't blame her because you in a marriage, like that's the part, like how the bills gonna get who what we talking about? What you mean you finna quit your job? I can't blame Reese, yeah. I
Reese.
can't blame Reese for feeling that way. But at the same time, Sydney did what Reese should have did, which is be like, okay, how we gonna do this? Like, what you need me to do? Like, what, how can we become partners in this? So I thought it was really interesting that in those dynamics, but to someone else, it could just be right off where they were friends. That's what you're supposed to do with your friend, right? But
Mhm.
it's a different layer there because Sydney liked him more than a friend.
Yeah.
And so I just thought it was real. So suddenly, to me, in Sydney and Kelby's case, can look like, oh, this guy meeting all your check boxes. Like he's financially stable, he looks good, he cooks, he romances you, all of that. But she was settling because that's not who she really wanted.
Mhm.
And he really didn't value her and value the things that she valued.
Yeah. Yeah. What you got, Pastor?
I'm gonna be honest, I haven't seen the movie in a long time, and I'm the type that once I see a movie, I'm done watching. I'm like, that's it, because I'm so I don't know. Brown Sugar is like we talked about Brown Sugar, right?
Mhm,
Mhm.
Brown Sugar is a very good movie.
mhm,
It captures like a lot of the emotions behind why we do what we do.
mhm,
Um, but just like any movie is based on a perspective, and we're right now, I mean, in Brown Sugar, we're looking at the writer's perspective. My bad. I'm getting a little choked up right here. No, I'm just kidding. My anyway, but I mean, what was Dr. A? You said you was going to allude to another question or whatever. What was that
mhm.
question you were going to do?
So we earlier in the live, we were asking like, so Dre asked See It Out when they were in college and she turned him down.
Hmm. Okay, so is it like is it a through piece when you
Yeah,
get turned
like
down?
so now Sid develops these feelings, and you know, Dre was about to get married. So, Sid in that interaction, is it like once a man expresses interest and a woman turns him down and they remain friends, is that door always closed?
I feel like there's two answers to that. Like, it's of course I hate to retreat back to this the school of thought, but it all really depends on that person.
Mhm,
That could be like a one of those things that, okay, well, if we try to go here
mhm,
and you say no, that's probably based on that rejection that you're giving to that person is based on a mindset.
mhm,
So you're saying no for a reason. So why are you saying no? And then if that was no, then what makes you say yes now?
mhm,
Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm the same person.
mhm,
So what changed between the no and the yes?
mhm,
Is it me that changed or is it you that changed? And if it's me that changed, then that means that I need to do some soul searching and be like, okay, because I didn't think that I was changing. And if it's you that changed, then we still need to have a conversation, because is it that you're just, and to go back to what you were saying, Anise, are you settling for what you couldn't get on the other side? Okay, well, this one is not what I wanted, but it's safe. He's, financially responsible, or he looks good enough, or something that people, these boxes that people make up to kind of, I guess, fill the void of things that they really need in somebody. And then they say, okay, well, this is good enough. He cooks, he cleans, at least he treats me nice. He's not a jerk, or at least he does this. And then before you know it, you become one of those at least he's, or at least she's. And nobody wants to be like somebody that, well, at least she. Can you imagine like being at a dinner with your friends and be all like, so how'd you guys get together? Well, she
was good enough.
Right. What do you like about her? Well, at least she cleans.
So,
And then I guess the second part would be if, man, I forgot. I went too far. Never mind.
So Tarina asks, is that a conversation that needs to happen because the two people? Okay, Tarina, ask the question again. Is that a conversation that needs to happen for the two people to continue the friendship? Is that what you're asking? So that would be my
Okay. Is that a conversation that needs to happen because the two people,
in order to continue.
Because of the two people, in order to kind of continue a friendship? Yeah, I think so. I think those two people need to have a conversation to have, in order to see where you're going to go, you have to see where you're at now. So a lot of people skip that, find out where we are now, in order to get to any place other than where we are now. So if we get further down the line, let's just go on a few dates and let's just see what happens. Let's talk first. And then, because if we talk first, we may save some gas money and some dinner money, you know what I'm saying? Save some time, effort, frustration, and all that kind of good stuff. I mean, but a lot of people, including myself, are not patient, are not that patient to have that kind of conversation. Things will work themselves out. That's the misconception that a lot of us have. Things will work themselves out. That's not the case.
And I think it goes back to the point, when I can speak for myself, I was never taught to how to have that conversation because of my socialization, growing up. And, I don't even know what that conversation looked like, right? Like, and you would expect. And, with me, sometimes I feel like conflict debate based on my experience of conflict. Well, I even think that conversation is like confronting, even though it's not. It's communication, it's clear there. But in my brain, I would think of, oh my gosh, this is finna end the friendship, or this is finna end this space where we are at. So I don't want to have the conversation. I can actually think of 2 times in my life that has happened where, when Sha-Lai, you asked, how do you deal with that? I had this internal struggle, and I was like, see it. I went to the bridal. Why? like, I guess I'm gonna go support my friend, but I'm over here being tortured because I did not have this conversation to clear the air, to, as I think to or somebody said, to just the communication of it. And I think it just kind of goes back, which is not an excuse. But I like to identify like where it starts.
Right.
How we are not taught, because we're taught, well, I was taught grow up, get married. I wasn't taught, I didn't have the healthy conflict with, all the boy cousins I had were all grown by the time I came along. So how to have that healthy conflict, how to have those conversations. Um, just kind of learn to avoid them. That's me. I'm definitely an avoider.
There's certain times where you can like glean off of people,
Mhm.
and there are certain situations or certain things that happen in relationships that you can't afford to like bring from somebody else's relationship, because what happens in their relationship works for them and it may not work for you.
Mhm.
So like, and then there's another thing, like a lot of our parents didn't teach us that because their parents didn't teach them that. It was you. It was even more. I mean, just imagine us growing up thinking, grow up, you get married.
Mhm.
Just imagine how intense it was before that. You know, you
Mhm.
grow up, get a job, get married. Make
Mhm.
sure you're a man. You don't cry. You don't show emotions. This, that, and the third, yada, yada, yada. I think now we we get forgiven more for showing our emotions and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
um, and being vulnerable.
Mhm.
And then some people take advantage of it. So then you like stuck in between what I've learned to do and what I was taught to do, and then the the places of where people take advantage of either.
Mhm. It's definitely a gamble. And it's definitely like brave to do either or, right? Like it's definitely a gamble to put yourself out there because starting back up, it's a gamble to put yourself out there because either or could happen. Either they could, take advantage of it, or you, and in both cases you grow as a person. But I think that's what basically vulnerability is. It's like I'm gonna put myself out there. Um at the risk of possibly, because staying in that in between phase, you're not growing.
Mm.
And that's why I said it's not an excuse, it's definitely not. But staying in that in between place is you're physically growing, but you can move from relation to relationship and still be stuck at that place because you never
Mm.
out of it.
Yeah, Tarina had mentioned in the past she's had the conversation and
Mm-hmm.
the other person wanted to end their friendship and she had to process those feelings seeing him around, especially if they had the
Mm-hmm.
same friend group. And so I think one of the things that you all are saying in regards to, and this could possibly, Anissa, we were talking about earlier, the
Mm-hmm.
con of
Mm-hmm.
having these platonic relationships is what happens
Right.
when there is a shift and
Mm-hmm.
how do you navigate that. And it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like we're saying each one of us has to be brave enough to have these courageous conversations
Mm-hmm.
and deal with the aftermath of that, whatever that may be. If that is a continued friendship, if that is the friendship ends, if whatever that is, but having it as opposed to just kind of like, sticking our head in the sand and just hoping it gets better,
Mm-hmm.
because it likely won't. And perhaps that's what Sia did,
Mm-hmm.
her character could have done. Where
Mm-hmm.
Dre is like, no, I like you. Let's take it to the next level. She's like, no, I'm scared because I don't want to ruin our friendship. And
Mm-hmm.
then they just never talk about it again until they having sex when they both in a relationship.
Right. And it's weird now because
You
there's
know what I'm saying? I'm like,
he's about to be ex-wife, and she's like, well, wait a minute,
right,
it's
right. So
um
oh, go ahead,
no,
Anissa.
go ahead. 'Cause I was about to say, I remember you mentioned not on the live, but about like that element of fear in those types of interactions, right? Like that keeps us from communicating, and it's scary. I'm not. That's why I say it's brave to be vulnerable because to Tarina's point, like I can get how this jacked up, and we in the same friend group. Like I can get how, and I think that's a very powerful question. How do you deal with that when you got so much invested in that friendship and now my feelings have shifted? And either I'm gonna be quiet and be quietly tortured, or I'm gonna take a risk and put it out there, and with the possibility that now things may never be the same again.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because we're talking about, these dynamics between friendships.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens in relationships, marriages, when that trust is broken, right? So how do we have that conversation? So for example, Reese felt some kind of way
Mm-hmm.
that Dre talked to Sydney first
Mm-hmm.
about quitting his job. Sia gave him money, and like he just kind of, it just kind of happened to come out with Reese. And
Mm-hmm.
so, could that have been, should that have been a conversation versus her just being like, well, let me go out here and kick it with these other guys? And you know what I'm saying? So, like,
I think,
across the board, how do we have these courageous conversations?
well, I think, and this might not be your question, but I think in that scenario, Dre definitely should have told Reese first because he was married to Reese, right? Like when you, to me, and I have a male best friend, but when you get married, I'm not saying well, I do subscribe to the idea your spouse should be your best friend. Some people don't, but that spouse takes precedent over your friend. I'm not saying don't tell them. I'm just saying don't tell her before you tell your spouse. Because I think, and like you said, now that trust is broken, so now Reese, who was not right, she wasn't right either. Now the trust is broken, so she's gonna go find her comfort in talking to other people when she should have also had a conversation. Hey, when you did this, I didn't like it. So backing up, that again, a conversation that never happened. See, she didn't like, I'm not gonna say she didn't like Sid, but she always side-eye Sid, even before that interaction, even before he quit his job. Like, because like I said, Sid was very awkward. And so even having that conversation, like, okay, we're getting serious. That's your best friend, or he brings up the conversation, that's my best friend. How do we navigate this together? And I think that should eliminate, or should have possibly, I don't know, him, you know what I'm saying, telling Sid before telling Reese. So it should have been a conversation, I believe, so there's no confusion. So there's no, everybody know their place in this dynamic. Um, and so when trust is broken, I think you as well, or the person that has the broken trust, hey, I didn't like it when you did this, as opposed to, her finding comfort in other people.
Mhm. Any thoughts, Pastor?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you are um, in a exclusive relationship, then the information in that relationship needs to be just as exclusive. So
Mhm.
like I'm not going to, just like I'm not going to walk around naked around my best friend, I'm not going to tell my best friend everything that goes on in my relationship, whether it's committed relationship or marriage, because that's like you, to your point, Dr. A, that's how those lines get blurred, and sometimes they get crossed because I'm finding what I need in somebody else at the moment. And
Mhm.
so when you get enough of that, you start romanticizing that other person, like, oh my, this person is, so much more understanding than this person, whoever I'm with. And it may not be, well, shoot, 9 chances out of 10 it's not the same. But my shoot, if I'm going to quote my dad when he does uh what's those things when you talk before you get married, counseling sessions,
Mhm.
keep other people out of your business.
Mhm.
So like he tells them that like probably 100 times, and it's just that important. You got to keep other people out of your business because some people have motives that they don't even know that they have.
Mhm. Good point.
So let me ask y'all this. because y'all, this wasn't on my radar, but Dr. A, you mentioned it. If a guy and a girl are besties before either one of them gets into a relationship, whose responsibility is it to share that information with the soon to be partner? And then how do you navigate that friendship after you're in a relationship?
The information is that they're besties, or
Yes.
just any information. Okay.
No. How do I tell my boyfriend that my
Mm-hmm.
best friend is a
Mm-hmm.
guy? And
Mm-hmm.
how do I navigate that? The best friend once I'm in a relationship.
So I've been in a situation like that, and
The answer is simple. Immediately. That's how you do
yeah, you tell them
it.
immediately, like you don't like.
Yeah, it's just how you do
Like,
it. You just say, hey, um, and just before we go any further, my best friend is on of the opposite sex.
mm-hmm.
And then you let them make that decision. Okay, well, that's something that I can't deal with.
But yeah, it's your responsibility, and you tell them
Right,
preferably before y'all get serious,
right. You
because
tell them immediately.
y'all serious, and that's a statement. Because I've had that statement. I was married.
Hmm.
I like the fact that that's your best friend. I don't like the fact you hang out with them. And I may or may not have been wrong because I was 20. I don't know yet because I still think about that. Like I'm like I didn't disrespect him, and eventually, like my ex husband came was like, okay, that's if anything was to ever happen, I know that's a person to call, right? Like so it at first though it was real rocky, so I had to be really careful not to disregard those feelings of. But by that time we was married, so I did it too late. But that's why I say preferably before y'all
If
get
you're like, I do. Oh yeah, by the way.
oh, like we had already moved like yeah, it's like yeah, we can't, I don't like
Speaking of I do have a male best friend.
so it was difficult, but I think having those conversations, it is incumbent on you, or if it's a guy that has a female. I think about
Okay, incumbent.
if I'm be honest, there is a double standard that resides in my body. My insides clench up thinking about when I was dealing with a guy that has a female best friend, and so I think
So why is that? Why
I,
is that?
I don't know. I have no explanation. I said it's a double
What look, check this out. What
standard.
make because it's not just you, but what makes a woman with a male best friend confide in their male best friend about their man who has a female best friend and be like, that ain't right.
Mhm.
How? You are literally
I
doing the
think it's
same thing.
I think it's the same mechanism that the guy has when they issue I don't like the fact that you have a male best friend, right? Like I think it's the same, it's an innate like I don't like that. Like it's to me, it's almost unconscious, like I don't want to call it a pissing contest, but I think subconscious that's what it kind of turns into. But it's not right for me to be like, well, I had a male best friend deal with it, and I'm over here griping over your female. It's not right for me to be that way. But I don't know why that happens. Why the feeling happens. I don't know. If anything, it teaches me to be empathetic about my guy friend. My if I was with a guy, it teaches me empathy and to not be like, well, I don't care what you think. I'm still hang out with my friend. Like that's not the right answer either. But I have
So so when if say for instance you have a guy best friend and you meet somebody,
Mhm.
do you disband that friendship for the relationship? Or do you include the friendship in the
I,
relationship?
I wouldn't. I would try to include it first,
Would
and
you allow him to include his friendship into the relationship?
I would like to. I would like that to happen. Yeah.
I
I
noticed the
feel
difference
like
in how
that's a
you.
must, though. I feel
But
No,
like
Dr. A, I'm gonna call you out on that one because you
myself
gave
out.
two
I
different.
know it's an issue. That's what I'm
Right,
saying.
you
I
gave two different answers.
I don't know why. The reason I would like it to happen to hopefully help me, and that's a me thing, to hopefully help me. Maybe it's jealousy. I don't know. So I would like it to happen to help me feel comfortable with it. But at first, like, oh, I got a female best friend. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be like, oh, okay. It's just gonna be oh, okay, in my head. Like, that's why I would like him to include her into the relationship, so I can.
Most men are not going to tip you off to a female that they're gonna be messing around with. Most men, unless they like totally diabolical, they're gonna introduce you to their side chick. That dude is dangerous. I mean, that dude is dangerous on
Oh, we
all
talking about
fronts.
a side chick or a genuine friend?
No, a genuine friend. What I'm saying is because if it's jealousy, then it has to do with some kind of like infidelity or of some sort.
Oh, it's just I'm an only child and I get territory. Like that's what I'm saying. I have no logical explanation as to if my boyfriend or fiance said I got a female best friend that I've known for X, Y, and Z, whatever feelings draw up, right? Do they stay that way? No. The more I get to know, in the situation I've had, the more I got to know the person, I was fine. Like that's their friend. But I feel like I don't know. I have no like explanation, no logical explanation. It's not that I think they cheated. It's just, oh, you got somebody else that you talk to other than me.
You feel the same way if it was a guy best friend?
I
And
was
then
just
I'm
about
gonna
to
ask
ask
you
that.
my last question.
Who, me?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask my last question after you. I'm curious if you would feel as territorial if it was a guy best friend.
Mm-mm.
Why not?
I don't know. That's why I'm in therapy. I don't. If I could tell you, I tell you. That's why I'm in therapy now, so we ain't gotta have these problems when I get married.
So here's my thought, and here's why I asked the question. So I don't feel like I've had a serious relationship with a guy who had a female
Hmm.
best friend.
Hmm.
In my mind, I don't have an issue with that. I feel like just like I would want to know your family, or I would want to know your homeboys, I would want to know your homegirl. And
Hmm.
so if she your friend, she my friend. Like we in this together. I
Hmm.
think my issue is when it's like when those boundaries that Pastor was talking about earlier,
Hmm.
when those boundaries are unclear and it's like the person you're dating is like, okay, I get that this is your best friend,
Hmm.
regardless of their gender. I get that this is your best friend, and I feel like you're doing a little too much. Like
Hmm.
they know a little too much. They're a little too much in our business. Like
Hmm.
that to me is regardless. Like, nah, this let's keep this close to the vest. So I think that can sometimes be the problem when people are like, but no, this been my best friend for 20 years, so I'ma tell them and I'ma do but but you in this relationship now. So you can't I mean you can, but that
It's
might
not
not
gonna
be
fare well.
say what?
It's not gonna fare well because
Right.
by the time by the time I'm done being mad at you, my best friend ain't. And they
Right.
still, because you've had time to separate yourself from the situation and they're still feeling obligated to be ride or die. And so
Hmm.
the next time I see this chick, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna let her know that I'm not her fan.
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of hers, and but yeah, I would like to bring up a nice little word I like to bring up a lot is reciprocity.
Hmm.
That's one of those things that goes under the radar at times.
Hmm.
People don't like to. People expect what they're not going to what they're not going to give themselves.
Hmm.
They want their mate to be this um, benevolent offering of affection, but then you're closed off and want this person to be benevolent and uh, gift giving, but you stingy. It's
Hmm.
they want to have a male best friend and they don't want to let you have a female best friend.
Hmm.
Shady boots.
I know. I'm messing with you, Doc. I'm messing.
I'm aware. I know I have.
She all like, and
Like, what?
and
No, but I agree with that. Like, I think, like I said, double standards. I think it's unfair. And this is kind of not what you were saying, but just as an example, I think it's unfair for you to ask for somebody who's financially responsible and you're financially irresponsible. Like, so I think, yeah, I think reciprocity is what are you willing to, you know, yeah, like you're asking me to do these things, but you haven't extended yourself to do these things. I think that's really what, to me, what makes a relationship. But no, not but, and we're both different as well. So I also think that our differences should be like, for example, if I don't like steak, but you do, like I might eat steak for a couple nights because, that's me celebrating you know what I'm saying? Like it's a very surface level example. But I also think that there are just some cases where because we are different, I think our differences should also be celebrated or accepted. And if not accepted, let's work on it.
Yeah. Okay, I have one more thing, and Dr. A, let me know if we didn't hit any of the points that you were
Okay.
thinking of. Um, and this is something that you and I talk about often is how you start
Mm-hmm.
needs to be how you finish and that level of consistency. So with Kelby, he
Mm-hmm.
started off shutting down restaurants to
Mm-hmm.
cook. He filled her brownstone or whatever it was with roses, all of that. But then by the end, he couldn't read her writing or he couldn't
Mm-hmm.
um he didn't want to help plan the wedding or any of
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things. And so what are your thoughts on like the importance of consistency in a relationship?
I think consistency is very important. I also think consistency doesn't look the same every day or but there is some form of, and there's a part B to this, there is some form of me like, okay, if you started off with roses and then you fizzled out to where you couldn't make our wedding appointments, like again communication, like why is that, right? I also think that before doing stuff like that, I think you should kind of know what your person like. Like I would prefer, for example, I would prefer you read my writing or we talk about or you buy me books of poetry than filling up my brownstone. Like that's a grand gesture, but is it sustainable? My boss used to ask me that all the time. Like, is this sustainable? Are you going to be able to keep this level of grandeur? Because I think as humans, once we see something like that, subconsciously we start to kind of
try to
expect.
expect it. Yeah.
And so if you can't keep it up, that's cool. Do what you can keep up. Like
Mhm.
I in the gym, I wouldn't go straight for a 500-pound weight. I can't keep it up. I'm gonna lift it once, hurt myself, and probably never pick it up again. So I
Yes,
think, but again, like consistency may not look the same, but at least you're doing a level of something where it's
right,
not, falling off completely.
right. Just show up as yourself. Tarina said, Pastor, how important is consistency?
It's important. It's super important, but it has to be something that is sustainable. Like Doc says, I'm I am going to show up how I've shown up, and sometimes that's a fault of mine, and sometimes that's something that's super commendable. But I'm going to show up how I show up. But I'm not gonna fill up anybody's brownstone with with flowers. Number one, that is super expensive, and then to shut down my restaurant, God, oh, that is super expensive because I'm losing money and I'm spending money at the same time. That is wild work. However, um, that's something that I would fault the guy with because you introduce something that to somebody that doesn't really know you like that, to make them feel like, okay, this is something that you can get used to. And when you do things like that, you have to bear the responsibility of your actions. So if I start a relationship like that, then I'm saying to you, hey, this is how attentive I am to you. This is how attentive I am going to be to you. I'm going to shut down. Nobody's going to exist when I need to focus on you. Nothing is going to exist when I need to focus on you. And then when you get to the point to where it's like it's trivial as, hey, can you so do you think we should do white napkins or blue napkins? Yeah, like, all these napkins, it's just, I mean, you have to do something that you have to live sustainably. And I mean, you don't have to do it grand gestures in every aspect of your life, but you need to make sure that you tap in on those points that you've initiated.
Right. And it doesn't
So
have to.
that's why in the beginning I don't do anything. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, I was gonna ask that question, but before I ask that question and we wrap up, it is again, y'all are seeing behind the curtain of me and Dr. A. It's like I don't need flowers or restaurant shut. Can you text me consistently? You know what I'm saying? Can we? It's the small things, right? We talked about that earlier. It's the little things, and if you're doing the little things consistently, that's big. That it doesn't have to be, roses or whatever. So honestly, Pastor, I was gonna ask you that question. Do you think some men start kind of, I don't want to say bare minimum because that sounds bad, but
No,
like,
but you start at the ground level, just like, I mean, when you walk into a building, you don't walk into the penthouse. You walk into the ground level and then you go from there to a different step. And a lot of people mess up. They mess up people's expectations by starting a relationship off at the 20th floor. And then now that you have to live everyday life, you take them back down to the ground floor, and now you acting different. You know, when in actuality, this is how I am. I'm a ground floor type of dude to the second floor, to the third floor. But in order to get your attention, I felt like I needed to start at the 20th floor. And that comes from a level of insecurity. People that aren't secure in just their personality, they have to do grandiose acts, or I'm gonna rent a helicopter for a weekend, or I'm gonna shut down the arch and tell her how much, read a poem to her. That's not stuff that you would do on a regular Thursday. So that's how I feel. That's how I base my acts on. Would I do this if it was just a regular Wednesday and I just thought about you? Would I do this, or would I do this? Grand gestures have their place, but at different stages of a relationship.
And I think it also bears to like, if you get to know a person before doing these grand gestures, you would know this what they would like, right? I think in some of the dating streets, like I haven't had anybody ask me. I'm not gonna say I had not had it. It wasn't an easy flow of like, hey, tell me about yourself. It always went to something else or nothing. And so how do you know what I like or don't like? And I'm not saying like grand gestures are bad, but I think even in that grand gesture, like I really appreciate this, and please don't feel like you gotta do this all, or some level of knowing that person, and that's the woman, knowing the gentleman as well. That way, so you're not disappointed when they not turning backflips on you. And just because it's like, oh, that's cool. Like I know women that don't like flowers. So if people buy them flowers, it's like, oh, thank you. Where you're probably expecting some type of really big reaction. It's like, well, you just asked me, I don't like flowers. I like gift card. I
Shoes.
don't know.
I'm
Yeah.
allergic to flowers.
Right. I'm allergic to flowers, right. But I think that's in the case of when we're dating, we're collecting data, we're getting to know someone. So therefore, like my ex-husband, he bought me a book and I loved it. It was a book I had been looking at for weeks. And one day, just he bought me a book and a card. And I mean, yes, that speaks to the nerd in me, but I loved it. Like it was the best thing ever. And so, I mean,
We like what we like.
yeah.
Indeed.
But yeah, that's something that a lot of people do. They put their love language and impose it to someone else. So like if I enjoy a grand gesture, I want you to give me grand gestures. Or if I enjoy a grand gesture, I feel like you enjoy it too. So I'm gonna in order to make you feel good, I'm gonna do what makes me feel good, and that's not necessarily bad because I hate to say it, it's the thought that counts. I mean, it's the thought that counts, but it's still, you're thinking you thought enough of me, whether you did the proper homework on it or not. You thought enough of me to do something that you know that you would like. That's something in its way reciprocity, because I'm not going to do anything that I don't like to you. So that tells you right off the bat, all we need to do is just work out a little bit of these kinks, because your heart is in the right place. You just haven't done any of the mental work.
Any final thoughts? We've been at this for an hour and a half.
Oh, this is good. I would have to say, in me watching Brown Sugar, I really enjoyed it. It did not rile me up like some of the other movies.
Yeah,
movies did.
I saw your episode on
To
Two
play
Could
again.
Play.
Going off. I Marco Polo one day. I was like, what? Why do we watch this?
That's
No, but
funny.
I think it's just the conversations because we just do nothing but get understanding. So it was good.
Well, thank you both. Thank you, Pastor, for your
Yeah, thanks
time
for
and popping
coming.
on. We appreciate you.
Okay.
Thank you to those on Facebook for hanging out and for commenting.
Terenia, she said she will enjoy eating at rallies.
Listen,
Just be
Rally's
present.
fries back in the day was fire. Um,
Listen.
it's the little things. It's the little things.
That's where I start. I start off at rallies and I work my way up. Before you know it, we at Captain D's.
Oh, dang. You gonna say Ruth Chris? Dang.
It's hilarious. So we'll be back next month, third Tuesday, and we're going to talk about. I think we've settled on. We're going to talk about waiting to exhale. So for those of y'all of the younger generation, please go watch Waiting to Exhale.
And
Please.
don't be setting nobody car on fire,
Please
because
don't do it, Angela Bassett. Although
You know,
when you watch the movie,
right,
you
then gonna lock the car.
you will empathize. So thank you guys for hanging out. Don't forget, ladies, Galentine's Night Out, February 14th. Roar Like a Lioness Women's Conference on April 5th. So we love you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. You got anything to say, Dr. A?
Oh, good. Thanks for hanging. Oh, we got our book club. Sorry, back up.
Oh,
I
go
do.
ahead.
We have our book club, The Mountain Is You, on second Thursday. I think we only have 2 more chapters left, but we would still love for you to join because it is really good. So our next book club meeting will be the second Thursday in January,
It's
which
actually gonna
is
be the second Tuesday for January and February.
we changed it to Tuesday.
We did because people will be out of town
Okay, I remember that.
and classes start. We had a whole conversation about this.
Okay, so
She was watching Brown Sugar while y'all was talking.
Right. So yes,
January 14th.
her point is still valid. valid. You are free to join us on the second Tuesday of January and February as we finish up
I have
the Mountain
issues
Dew.
with calendars, apparently. I
Pastor,
don't use
anything
them.
going
I
on
should.
that
But
you
yeah,
want to share with the people?
First of all, thank y'all. Second of all, my birthday is January 14th. So if y'all want to give me something, that's great.
reciprocity.
I was gonna say rallies.
I mean, hey,
Please.
what number y'all want? What number y'all want? You can even supersize it. But also, if y'all not doing anything, if you're watching and you're not doing anything on Sunday, you can come down to the church, Leonard Missionary Baptist Church, 1100 North Compton, and chill with your boy for a minute. We only church for about an hour or two, so come holler at me. And if you're not doing anything next Monday, check out me on my podcast, Crosstalk Podcast, every Monday. Well, not every Monday. We went at it yesterday, but most Mondays at 7 p.m. on Go Crosstalk, YouTube and Facebook.
All right, y'all. We love you guys. Be blessed, doctors.